Hey Lynn, what do you want to do?
Get into the groove.
Hey all you cool cats and fine little felines, it's Leah,
Lynn.
and we're standing in West Memphis, Arkansas on the location that used to be the Blue Beacon Truck Wash. And why is that significant? It's because it's right next to what used to be Robin Hood Hills. And that is where a horrific thing happened in 1993 that we're going to talk about today.
On May 5th, 1993, just on the other side of these trees, 3 8-year-old little boys went out to play and never came home. They say 2 were on one bicycle and 1 was on another bicycle. And all the kids in the area used to play in what was known as Robin Hood Hills. And unfortunately, on that day, those little boys never made it home.
So instead of focusing on what happened to these 3 little boys, they immediately needed to pin it on somebody. And so they found somebody with low IQ and talked him into making a false confession and incriminating 2 other kids that he knew. And let's face it, they were just kids. The oldest, Damien Echols, he was only 18 at the time. Jason Baldwin, 17. Jessie Miskelley was 18 as well. It was a tragic series of events that happened, really. We're in this video, we're not going to tell you what we think. We're not going to, this is such a polarizing subject. But I can tell you that whenever I was growing up and this happened, I believed everything the news told us. I believed that these 3 boys were guilty of killing these 3 little 8-year-old boys, and it was terrible. But whenever the documentary came out on HBO, I was Paradise Lost. I was 16 years old. Bruce and Joel were the film directors. Bruce Sanotsky and Joel Berlinger, I think. They later went on to do Metallica's documentary, but they made a documentary called Paradise Lost that is very famous now. They had 2 other parts to it as well, so it ended up being a trilogy. But I remember I was on vacation with my family in Washington, D.C. whenever it premiered. And when I got home and watched it, I was angry. I was angry at the court system. This happened, the trial happened in Jonesboro where we lived. I was angry at the police department. I was angry at everybody involved because there were no winners. One of the boys got sentenced to, he was on death row for years. And, it was Henry Rollins and Eddie Vedder and Johnny Depp. They all ended up getting involved. If it hadn't been for that documentary on HBO, Damien Echols would be dead, and Jessie Miskelley and Jason Baldwin would still be in prison for this crime. Now we're going to walk over to where the boys were found and where they pulled the bikes out. It used to be a completely wooded area, and now they've cut most of the trees down, but the little drainage pipe is still there. So come on.
Right here is where the neighborhood ended and Robin Hood Hills used to begin. It used to all be a wooded area, but as you can see, they've cut down all the trees, but you can still walk up and see where they found the bodies was right down there by the water. This was as close as we could get. It was just too dangerous to go any further. There were too many kudzu vines, and but you could see down by the bank is where they pulled the little boys out of the water. And right here is a famous shot of this drainage pipe where they found the little boys' bicycles.
Here we are at Weaver Elementary. This is where the boys went to school and were in Cub Scouts and played, and they erected a little gazebo in their memory, and we're going to walk over here and see it.
Here I come.
Here's the little gazebo, and I mentioned the boys' names that have been convicted of these crimes, but I haven't mentioned the names of the little 8-year-old boys that were murdered so many years ago. In fact, it'll be 30 years next weekend. Their names are Steve Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore. And they have the little Club Scout motto, "Do your best." And we are going to visit all 3 of their graves today, and we also brought them a little toy, a little transformer, which Lynn's already played with in the car.
Forever young at heart.
Actually, I wasn't expecting to feel so sad standing here. It is really sad. And it seems strange. We live so close, and this was such a big part of our lives growing up. This case, everybody around here, it was such a big deal. And I've never been over here. Neither has Lynn. This is our first time to come over here and see all these places that we've seen on TV and in the trial and in the movie. But it's not just a movie; it's real life. It really happened, and that's so scary. That real life is more terrifying than a movie could ever be.
Sad. What's really, really sad is they really didn't focus on these three little boys, these 3 innocent little boys, little Stevie Branch and Christopher Byers and Michael Moore. They made all the attention on the Damien and Jessie and Jason.
It was complete satanic panic around here.
They-
It was nuts.
The police were under such scrutiny to pin it on someone, and they had no one to pin it on. And they had another suspect at the Bojangles restaurant, which is a whole nother story, but they didn't have anyone to pin it on, so they got 3 teenagers from the West Memphis High School here that were outcast and tried to blame it on them, and that is really, really scary, especially for like Leah and I, because if that would have happened in our hometown, they could have just as likely blamed it on us.
Lynn brings up the Bojangles restaurant. The night of the murders, there was a bloody, muddy man that went into the Bojangles restaurant, and the police were called. They took samples, and supposedly the police say they lost the samples. So we'll never know what happened there. There was some suspicion on the stepfather of Christopher Byers for a while, because there was a knife found that had blood on it, but that ended up being, he ended up being a red herring too, because he was such an odd character. In the end, it turned out that he was innocent. He was just a kind of a strange man, and sadly his wife passed away too, which didn't lessen
The suspicion.
the suspicion that was put on him.
The case has never been solved. There's no more investigations about it. All the leads have ended, and
They made the 3 that were in prison plead the Alford plea, which is a way of saying your innocence, maintaining your innocence while pleading guilty. And that was the best they were going to get. And at this point, Damien, his eyesight was starting to deteriorate. They were going to die in there. And so they had to do anything that they could to get out.
And Jason almost didn't accept the offer because he said
he wasn't going to admit to anything
that he didn't do. And but he wanted to save his friend's life. So in order to save his friend's life, he had to admit to something that he, obviously didn't do. But in the end, they all got out of prison after spending 18 years.
18 years of their life.
And Damien was on death row for the whole time.
And if you've read his book, Damien's book, Life After Death, is such a good book. He doesn't spend a lot of time talking about the case because it's been so well documented, but he talks about his time in prison and his life before that. The West Memphis Police Department pretty much harassed this boy his whole life just because he was the weird guy in town.
Because he listened to heavy metal music and wore black clothes.
We found Michael right here. It looks like there's been lots of little toys left for him. We have something to leave for him. We brought him a little transformer. And Lynn was nice enough to turn it into a little tank for him. Put it right there for him. Look at all the little toys left for him. It is very sad. July 27th, 1984 to May 5th, 1993. Beloved son and brother. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thy art with me, a lamb of Christ's flock. Michael James Moore.
He will be forever young. It's
Forever
terrible.
young, that's true. Lynn's just cleaning off his little grave and straightening up his toys for him.
He has all these little cars to play with out here now. This little bike. He's the baby.
I've always wanted to visit the 3 little boys' graves and pay my respects. It was really easy to find. As soon as you come into the cemetery, turn left, and he's buried pretty close to the road. It took us maybe 5 minutes to find him.
See right here by this big tree and this big rock that's in the ground, and the tree little formation there.
And there's the little entrance, the building right there where you come in. So you just turn left and come straight down this road until you see that tree and that rock, and then he's right here. Rest in peace, Michael. Welcome to Tennessee, the volunteer state. We found him. Christopher Mark Byers, June 23rd, 1984 to May 5th, 1993. The Little Lamb of God. And we brought him a little toy as well. We'll sit it next to his little car. Little transformer.
Little guy. Never even got to experience life. It was taken away from him.
His mama is right here, so
They're together.
she's watching over him. She pretty much died of a broken heart. And she lived 3 more years after Christopher. But right here is little Christopher. Even though it's right next to the road, it's a nice little cemetery Christopher's in. If you want to find his grave, as soon as you come in through the front gates where the angels are, you'll pass this little white building, and there are these flagpoles. If you look directly left to the tallest flagpole, you'll find Christopher and Melissa buried just about 10 graves in. So we've been to Michael's grave, and we've been to Christopher's grave, and now we have little Stevie's grave. So we have to drive all the way to Steele, Missouri, which is an hour from here. And then we'll have visited all 3 of them. We found Stevie. This is the back of his grave. Here lies a little rosebud in the flower garden of heaven, son of Pam Hicks and Steve Branch, grandson of Jackie and Marie Hicks and Billy and Geneva Branch, brother of Amanda Hobbs, Stephanie Branch, and Dylan Branch. And there's little Stevie. November 26, 1984 to May 5th, 1993. And I just want to tell a little story. In Damien Echols' book, Life After Death, he talks about Stevie's mom, Pam Hobbs, gave him a pocket watch. And engraved on the pocket watch said, "Time starts now." So at first, all the parents of the 3 8-year-old boys that were murdered believed the 3 that they had put on trial were guilty. But I think now, all of the parents, with the exception of Michael Moore's parents, I think they still believe the 3 that went to trial and pled the Alfred plea are guilty. But I know Stevie's mom and Christopher Byers' stepdad
Father.
believe in their innocence now. And you saw Lynn. We left our little toy for Stevie right there. The little frogs, and there's a little car there. I think that's the little car that we saw Scott on Tape leave.
We have to give a shout out
Yeah, Scott on
to
Tape
Scott on Tape.
helped us find some of these graves. But we vowed to see all 3 today, and we made it. We made it to Still, Missouri. We went to West Memphis, to Marion, to see Michael Moore. Then we went on the other side of Memphis and saw Christopher Byers, and now here we are in Still, Missouri at Stevie Branch's grave. Rest in peace, all 3 little boys.
We'd like to thank you guys for coming on this journey with us, and hopefully you'll follow us on ones to come in the future. And if you don't mind, take a chance to hit that subscribe. That would give us a lot of help. We appreciate that.
I know this video was somber, but we really felt like it was time that we did this, especially being the 30-year anniversary. We thought it was a good time to come pay our respects to the little boys and their families.
Yeah, we kind of wanted to put more attention on the kids themselves instead of the other kids, and we brought them a little toy for their 30th year. Hopefully they would be into Transformers. I think they would have liked the Transformers.
Thank you for watching.